And the interesting thing is, it's not like they've had that much experience with Kenyan guys. And the truth of it is, I don't know if I can call it a sense of just disdain and dislike for their own country and their own people, but it's like you listen to a bunch of them and they never talk nicely about Kenyan guys. Whether it's Huda Monroe, whether it's Vera Sidika, whether it's Rispa Faith, like all of these ex-socialites, these former influencer type babes that were being flown out, like they're always chatting crap about...
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who likes his women the same exact way he likes his yogurt. He is also a man that might have trouble breathing if you've got that asthma. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. This episode has me talking about dating, and for some reason it's like people are complicating shit. Like, people are complicating an act and an art that is supposed to not be as complicated, at least when you're looking at the basics of it, but it's like people just are trying to find some magical form of calculation to make dating work in their favor such that they have like a, 99 or 100% success rate. And that's not really the case. That's not how it works, and life isn't built like that. But all in all, I will get to the meat of whatever it is that I am talking about. But so far, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you've been listening to previous episodes, if you just started listening on this particular episode, I thank you so much. And I hope you listen all the way till the end, because I do have a main topic that is supposed to make me question whether it is people are supposed to love each other a little bit more on one end versus the other. But before I get to that, there are some things that I wanted to talk about first of which being I am nominated for the 2024 APVA Awards. Now, I was nominated for 2 awards with them, which is the Relationship Podcast and the Comedy Podcast categories, and I would love it if you voted for me. Now, I have the link to the vote in the description, so you will see the 2024 APVA Awards, and when you click that link, you will go to the site where you can select the different categories that you would like to vote for. I am in the relationship and the comedy categories for podcasts, so I would love your votes for the sake of, ego in saying that I'm an award-winning podcaster. Like, that shit kind of builds cred to your name to some degree, especially if it's a regional award. But anyways, all in all, I do look forward to your votes, and I do thank you for listening, and if you do make some effort, I will appreciate it as well. But with that said, I do have to get to the topics of today. First of which involves me somehow siding with a former socialite that was busy telling people, more so women, to go for summer bunnies and to stop going for other Kenyan guys, which for me to explain exactly why I was sort of agreeing with her, at least in one bit of what it was that she was saying, it requires me to elaborate a little bit further and talk about the person being Rispa Faith, and I will play the clip for you guys, then I can get into my thoughts on it. So, without further ado...
Brian is a Kenyan man.
He's lived in the US, that's the difference. 11 years. His mind is not haitoshani na wanaume wa huku.
So what would you say about history ya sababu wanaume wengi?
Tafuteni sama bunnies, tafuteni wanaume wenye wameishi majuu. Mbona mnakazana na wanaume wa huku? Ukimwomba pesa mnachapwa, sijui mnafanyiwa nini, hizo vitu zote zani. Tafuta mwanaume ametoka nje ya country, ameenda Dubai, akili imefunguka. In short, tafuta mwanaume mwenye ako exposed kiakili.
Ni vibaya labda kwa mwanadada kutafuta hela kutoka kwa mwanaume?
Hapana? Okay. It's fine. It's fine. Don't you love a little money from your man? You do, right?
Of course.
Yes. Don't you?
I don't have a man, so I wouldn't know, to be honest.
What would you tell me, Maisha?
But that's a good advice you give me, senior. All right.
Yeah. It's good to have your own money as a woman, but pesa ya mwanaume ni tamu, lakini yako ni tamu sana.
All right.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, so she said quite a bit, and in as much as I do want to translate exactly what she said, I think it might be a little bit harder for me to do that within the amount of time I have, but I will kind of get into exactly what it was that she was saying and why I do agree with what she was saying to a certain degree, or at least a small bit of what it was that she was saying. Now, of course, she did talk about enjoying a man's money and how great it is, to enjoy a man's money, and when a man spends money on you, And honestly, that's, for me, something that I'm so used to hearing, and I'm neither here nor there about it. Frankly, it's mostly free money. Can I call it that? Like, you don't really have to toil for it, and just like money that's been stolen, you'll spend it quickly, you'll enjoy the money. It's pretty sweet money because it's a lot and it didn't come from too much hard work, so you don't have to think too much about it. So it's great. Women will talk about that, and they'll talk about how they enjoy spending a man's money. Now, is it something that is good? That's entirely up to the woman. But is it something that you should be entitled to? I don't think so. Now, with that said, the thing that I actually did not like the most about what she said was the comparison of Kenyan men versus men from other countries, and her talking about the fact that even though that she has a Kenyan man, he's been in the US for about 11 years, so the guy is definitely on a different level, not like other Kenyan guys. Now, I know I may not be the most patriotic Kenyan that's out there. Hell, I might even be questioned in terms of my patriotism for the country. But hey, I don't know if it's just me, but it's like these socialites, these babes who have been regarded as socialites since back in the day, for some reason it's like they have this disdain and this dislike for Kenyan men, which I have never fully understood where it's coming from. And the interesting thing is, it's not like they've had that much experience with Kenyan guys. And the truth of it is, I don't know if I can call it a sense of just disdain and dislike for their own country and their own people, but it's like you listen to a bunch of them and they never talk nicely about Kenyan guys. Whether it's Huda Monroe, whether it's Vera Sidika, whether it's Rispa Faith, like all of these ex-socialites, these former influencer type babes that were being flown out, like they're always chatting crap about Kenyan guys. Even Shakila, the young babe that popped up during COVID and blew up as a result of her sticking a remote down her vajayjay. Like, even though someone could press her buttons, it's not like it would change her view of Kenyan men. And honestly, I don't get why these guys have such a big disdain for Kenyan men. Maybe it's the fact that we don't spoil them financially like some guys from other countries would. But then again, when you kind of think about it, the same guys that are spoiling her are like the top 0.1% from those countries, and if they were to go and actually live with the locals in those countries, they'd probably get treated even worse than how they'd probably be treated here in Kenya. So you kind of think about it, they can have hate for Kenyan men, but at least they know how us guys are, and we're probably not all that bad or all that different from a bunch of guys in other countries that they speak so nicely of. But anyways, that wasn't even the main part. Now, the part where I actually did agree with her was her speaking of how women should go for men that are exposed. Now, of course, she did mention the whole going for summer bunnies thing, which I'm not really for. Personally, I feel like that's encouraging women to do prostitution on a more indirect way, which, considering that this is the same socialite that like a year or two ago was busy talking about how bad that life was for her and how it took her down a dark path and blah blah nyota yangu blah blah, like, I find it a bit odd that she'd be recommending that to other women. Like, yes, these guys might come and spend a couple of $100s here and there on them, but it's not like they'll really get that much value beyond that. And once they've left, they probably may not care too much about you, and they'll come back expecting either to shag you for fun again or shag some other babe, because that's probably what they're looking at. But back to the part where I agree with her, the idea of going for men that are more exposed is actually a good thing. Now, of course, being exposed might be you traveling to a different country or different countries and learning about different cultures. And, that might seem like the case. But when I look at the idea of being exposed, it's being exposed beyond your current culture and environment, such that you can try out different cuisines, you can read about different places and different people, and you can learn about other cultures that are different from your own. In that, you become a much better person because you know of those cultures and the different practices that people have in different cultures. Now, that is my idea of exposed. And I believe that men who are more exposed like that, be it through education, be it through traveling, are better men because they do not hold on to the same cultural or social beliefs of a particular area or a particular people that they've grown with since birth. And that means that they are more open to learning more, they are more open to different things and different experiences that can make them better. The problem with a lot of the men that choose to stick to a certain form of thinking and, the way they've grown up and the way they've been raised and their culture, and they don't try to learn and acquire knowledge from other cultures, is usually the fact that they think that the only way that stuff works is based off of their culture and their social upbringing. And that becomes a problem because the world does not function the same exact way every single where. People have different beliefs, people have different cultures, and that can make interacting with different people from different places particularly hard because you're not opening yourself up to new experiences and to understanding people a little bit better. And that sort of close-mindedness, that sort of narrow-mindedness can actually breed more problems than it can actually solve. And you never really notice that a lot better than when you're getting into a relationship with someone who hasn't been that exposed, and the only way that they believe in the relationship working and they believe in handling matters in a relationship is from the background that they've come from. And while that might work for them and probably has worked for their people, it might not work for someone who's from a different culture and a different environment and a different society. So for you to date someone who's very close-minded can actually prove to be quite difficult and quite hard, yet the reality of it is not all cultures are going to handle things the same exact way, and some understanding is usually needed between both parties. Although, then again, maybe it might just sound like I'm having hate for Kenyan guys that don't travel much, so I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode. Now, very recently, I stumbled upon a very interesting post on Reddit. It was a guy who was busy talking about who he prefers should approach first or should show interest first, and it actually reminded me of a conversation that I had with a cousin of mine and some of her friends not too long ago, which does bring up the question of showing interest, showing affection and love, and who shows how much on either side. Now, I am going to read the post because the guy says, and I quote, "I am a firm believer that she falls first, I fall harder. I don't believe in chasing women. I don't believe in go raise her, blah blah blah. If she likes me, then she can make the first move. I like it that way because at least there's clarity. I don't have to waste my time, money, energy, especially energy and effort, man. I'm the type who'll get your number and directly ask you and see if this is going anywhere as early as the first week of talking. Then afterwards, we can have that talking stage for as long as possible, even though it's years. I don't know about y'all, but I'd love to hear. Of the total number of girls you've come across, how many that had zero interest in you have you managed to bag? Maybe I'll be motivated to try it out more often." End quote. Okay, so while I had my thoughts, I actually had to look at some of the comments, and some of the things that were being said were pretty interesting. One of the ones that actually stood out for me was someone who said, and I quote, "Wrong demographic here, but in my experience, men who prefer to be chased don't have a certain drive, and that drive is my biggest turn on. Chasing after a man drives my coochie so hard. But I mean, all the best in this life, to each their own." To which the guy was busy talking about, "Oh, you missed my point. I don't want you to chase me. I just want you to show interest." Which was a pretty good clarification. So it wasn't really a case of chasing, it was just a case of showing interest, and that actually seemed to be cleared up from there. Someone else said that his assessment was accurate, and the harder you chase, the more shit tests and resistance you'll face as a guy, and it's always better when she's more interested in you. Which was a pretty interesting take, sort of in line with what this guy was saying. And I think the other one that I saw, which was in line with what this dude was saying, said, and I quote, "It's best when a woman likes you first instead of trying to prove why she should. A woman that likes you first knows what she wants and sees something in you. The woman that doesn't, she could care less about you and only what you do for her. You can spend time chasing and still go nowhere, whereas a woman that shows interest in you actually wants to know you." End quote. And, all of these are guys that are busy talking about, the woman showing interest first and how great of a thing it is. And honestly, I actually kind of agree to a certain degree. Like, it's great when the woman shows interest. But, hey, at the end of the day, how many guys have women who show interest in them first? Like, it's great when it happens to you, but how frequently does it happen? There's some guys that have pretty privilege. There's some guys that are attractive, so they'll always get that expression of interest, But it's not like this happens to every single guy all the time or even that frequently. There's a lot of guys that get almost zero expressions of interest in a month and barely any in a quarter, let alone even a year. So when someone comes up and is like, oh, it's best if she shows interest, then, there's guys that don't have the luxury of that. Which is why I'm of the personal opinion that in this day and age of feminism and equal pay and people trying to be equal to each other, it's a lot less about who expresses interest and more about the fact that someone's expressing interest in the first place. When you kind of think about it, if you're interested in someone, why not express it? Why do you have to sit and wait for them to express that interest? Like, I've once had a story like this from a babe where it's like, oh, if I'm really interested in a guy, I will try to get close to them, but if they don't show interest in me, even though it takes 100 years, I will not bother with this guy up until he puts in the work. And you're like, first of all, you're interested in dude. What's so wrong about you expressing your interest? And they're like, no, I just can't. Oh, I can't deal with the rejection. So of course, there's women that are having trouble dealing with rejection and the fear of it, because if they go and they express interest and the guy isn't interested in them, then they'll feel twice as worse than guys, because according to a lot of women today, it's not like women usually make the first move. So it's like bad that they haven't expressed interest in you, but it's also bad that you're the woman, you're expressing the interest and the guy still isn't showing interest in you. So I can get why they might feel that way. But guys also have the problem of not being sure if this babe wants them for some reason or the other. And, they don't want to be taken for a ride. They don't want to be looked at as a simp. And also, let's be honest, a lot of guys today are afraid of rejection. So they want the woman to go and express interest first. So you're like, these are two people that have a genuine interest in each other, not necessarily all the time, but these are situations where people have interests in each other. And both sides could not be expressing interest in one another, even though they are interested in one another, because one person expects the other person to do it. So what's the best way to solve this problem if not expressing interest first, regardless of gender, simply because you are interested in this person? Like, it won't hurt you, and if it does, it'll be for a pretty short time. And for the most part, like, yes, you could get a no, and not unless if you're under company boundaries, the worst that'll happen is you get sent to HR. But expression of interest isn't a bad thing. Like, people do expression of interest all the time. The problem is people nowadays are expecting the other person to express interest so that they can feel comfortable enough to express theirs, which, let's be honest, isn't always going to happen to everyone. And I can tell you for a fact, from being the person that is expressing interest to someone who has had interest expressed to them, I know for a fact that it'll always have varied results. It's not like one side has the best result or the other side has the best result. This whole belief that, if the man expresses interest first, then it's better for the woman, or it's better. If the woman expresses interest first, it's better for the man, or it's just better overall. Like, that is a steaming pile of bullshit. Like, you never really know. And I will tell you this for a fact. I have expressed interest in women that are interested in me, as well as women that aren't interested in me, and it has had positive and negative results on either. I have also had women express interest in me, and I have been interested in some and not in others, but I can tell you for a fact that it's not like it's always gone great if I am also interested in the babe or not. Sometimes stuff just doesn't work out. So I usually never find the whole idea of, let the other person show their interest first, because it easily puts the power of what you guys could be or should be in the hands of someone else, entirely based off of the fact that you are unable to suck it up and go make a move and just express the fact that you're attracted to someone, or that you'd like to explore a possible relationship or situationship with a desired person. And I know there's guys that are always like, it's better if the woman usually expresses interest, because if she likes you, then it's going to work because you can learn to like her. I actually saw a comment like that where someone was busy talking about how, like, it's better if the woman expresses interest first because she likes you more, and for us as guys, we can learn how to like the babe over time, and it'll be pretty good, as opposed to the other way where it just puts us in harm's way and, stuff doesn't go as great and you go through shit tests and all. And when I read that comment, that kind of reminded me of that conversation that I had with my cousin and her friends some time back, where they were busy talking about how it's better if the man loves the woman more, because as a woman you can learn to love the guy over time, but if the guy doesn't love you initially, then it's not like you can come back from it. And the thing is, both sides of the gender aisle actually believe that it's better if the other person loves them more. And I have discussed and debated with both sides of the gender aisle on this, and honestly, I feel like people are just afraid of putting their feelings out there and the possibility of them being hurt. And the reason I'm saying this is because both sides of the gender aisle are saying the exact same thing. The women are saying it's better if the man loves you more than you love him. The men are saying it's better if the woman loves you more than you love him. And I can tell you for a fact, both of y'all are probably wrong about this shit, because first of all, we can't quantify love. The realistic fact of it is you can't quantify love. What you can do is try to estimate the value, if I can call it that, of affection that someone is giving you based on their actions. But you cannot realistically quantify love. It's an abstract thing. It's not something that can be measured on a cup or a cylinder or a certain scale. So a guy can fly out to Dubai but not love you all that much, and someone else can pick a flower from a garden and give to you, and they love you with every single fiber of their being. At the end of the day, it just comes down to their actions. And when someone is busy saying, oh, it's better if the man loves you more, the woman loves you more, I think it's just this sense of, this person really cares for me, so I am comfortable enough to put my feelings out there and show my affection without the possibility of them hurting me, because the person with the quote-unquote least feelings in a relationship is the one that holds the most power, which honestly I think is a bit of a bullshit situation. Because if you're gonna get into a relationship with someone and you believe that you love and trust each other, then why put that situation where it's like, oh, I have to make sure that I'm the one who has the most power in this? Where's the fun in that? Where's the enjoyment in that? Don't you feel like that's more a case of you trying to prevent something that you're scared of than actually you trying to enjoy the relationship? Because if that's the game that you're playing, then are you really going all in on the relationship though? I feel like that should be a food for thought for a lot of people, because deep down I tend to think that people do want to be loved and they do want to love fully. It's just that they're never really sure of the other person, and day after day people feel like they have less and less trust in them putting their feelings in the other person, yet you never really truly realize how great something can be, not unless if you go all in and you believe that if anything happens you'll be able to get yourself out. Which kind of brings me to the conclusion of all of this, where I'll probably just give you the most simple advice that possibly every single pickup artist would tell someone, which is just go ahead and make the move. Go ahead and express interest. Go and approach that person. Be it you, the woman, trying to approach a guy, be it you, the guy, trying to approach a woman, just go and make the move. It is okay, it is perfectly fine, and it's the best way to know if the other person is actually interested in you or not. Now, while I do tell you to go ahead and make the move, I am not telling you to go ahead, make the move, and then open yourself up so that you can be trampled on or treated like shit. Express your interest, yes, but also realize that you expressing interest means that you are interested in someone, but it does not mean that this person should treat you the way they want just because you're interested in them and they're not. At the end of the day, it's about the possibility of better, not necessarily the possibility of just you getting the specific individual. And from there you can see where it goes. Not unless if you guys work together and then that person probably reports you to HR, then that's a little bit of a tough situation. But either way, if you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at the breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the breaktime podcast. And on X, it is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.